Welcome. This is the podcast series dedicated to living a revenue culture. Long term business success and even survival is about creating maximum profit, and that can only be accomplished when you've first optimized a people first context. And every 2 weeks, we bring you somebody out there in the real world who's working on living a revenue culture, who's working on maximizing profit, optimizing people, and applying revenue science to their world. And today, we have John Noonan with us. And John is that person that every CEO I've ever talked to wants to get their hands on. Uh, he started his career as a very successful salesperson, but then became EVP, a VP, a VP of sales and marketing, a COO, a CEO, and today he's the president of Growth Plan Partners, a sales acceleration partner, a Vistage TA, and is a very experienced consultant helping to drive sales growth when you need it the most. He's an advisor who utilizes the Sales Acceleration platform, which builds a sales engine to actually create record breaking growth. So, John, welcome.
Thank you so much. Quite the introduction. I appreciate it very much.
Well, you've earned it, so you might as well have it shown around so that people know what
Okay.
it is you've accomplished. And actually, the first thing I'd like you to do is go a little deeper into that. I just covered it quickly, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure everybody will be instantly familiar with sales acceleration and
Okay.
the platform that you talk about. So please make that part of your introduction.
Sure. Well, I appreciate it very much. So, as you said, it's 35 plus years I spent in corporate America and had a blast doing it. I did start as a salesperson, actually, even while I was still going to college. I was selling office supplies down in New York City. I would go down to Park Avenue because they had big buildings, and I'd push the button for the penthouse and I'd go all the way to the top because there was no security in those days, and
Yep.
I would see who bought office supplies and work my way down a building a day, handing out catalogs and stuff like that. So I've always enjoyed meeting people, getting to know people, finding out what their pain points and needs are and see if I can fulfill them. So,
Yep.
sales has kind of been in my blood. Most of my life, I worked in fast food when I was a kid and stuff like that, and service and things like that. I always enjoyed. So, upon graduating college, though, then I did go with a big company, Avery Dennison, a big $2 billion printing and packaging consortium that I worked with for close to 6 years. And it was there that I decided I wanted to be a sales leader. Enjoyed
Yep.
selling, but I saw what a sales leader could do to, form a team and get a team, creating some exciting action. And that's what I wanted to do. So, and I actually got some training for it, which is, it's kind of a big joke in our industry about, we work with small and mid-sized businesses. So many companies today make the error, in my opinion, of taking their best salesperson and let's make them a sales manager because, we need to give them a title or something. And then they've lost their best salesperson and they have a mediocre sales manager at best. So
Yep.
not exactly the perfect move, but we'll talk about those things later. So anyway, after a successful career there, I got lured away to a competitor, worked there for quite a bit, and then eventually got the COO and CEO position of about a $40 million screen printing operation, which I enjoyed. But subsequently, we sold to private equity. So I got a little bit of experience with private equity companies and the whole ownership there, and they had their own team coming in. So I transitioned from there and then ended up mostly working for companies that were held by private equity,
Yep.
where I was on the executive team as EVP sales and marketing and had a fractional ownership position that the executive team normally has in those deals. And you make some money on some, not on others. That's the way the game's played. But I had a very good run, and grew some companies. I had a lot of fun building as we got private equity money, and the objective obviously was to grow more rapidly than most. So we would pursue new markets, new industries. I started two divisions for a company, had to build the sales engine around it, the marketing engine around it.
Yep.
It all became very successful. And a company that I started with actually at about $30 million today is, I think, about 750 million, approaching a billion. Now it's in acquisition mode and things like that, but back then it was all internal growth, and we just had tons of fun doing it. And that's what I love to do. I love to build teams. I love to coach salespeople, show them how to do it, what the latest and greatest is today in technologies and process and systems, and take it from there. So after 35 years of doing that, along came COVID, and obviously we all slowed down during that period of time, and it was just great timing for me. I decided to go out on my own, so it'll just be 3 years now, just about this time of year actually, that I went out and started Growth Plan Partners. And what I do today is I help small and mid-sized business. So after kind of trying to turn the Titanic a little bit from time to time, and get tiny ticks of motion, now I'm working with small and mid-sized businesses, and getting them, great strides and great growth percentages, in showing them the systems and processes that need to be in place to take you to the next level. So, my average client today is probably in the $5 million to $50 million
Yep.
range. That's kind of the super sweet spot where we see a lot of companies get stuck or not understand how to get to the next level. They get to that 20 million mark or whatever it happens to be, and they float around there for a couple of years. And that's what I kind of dig them out of, show them the way, help them get the right people in place, and drive that revenue growth. And on average, my performance has been pretty good. Most of my clients are up 20 to 35% in a year's time of working with me. And you had mentioned Sales Xceleration. Again, I had started my practice first, and then discovered Sales Xceleration, and was glad that they accepted me as a part as an advisor, because what we do there is about 200 of us around the country. Obviously with a lot of different backgrounds in the industries that we served, but we pool and share our knowledge, our tools, our best practices, and we work with corporate to make sure that we have all the systems and processes that we need. And corporate is out there always looking to, find good partners for us and good systems for us and things like that. But right recently, I've actually co-advised with a couple of other advisors where I got called in because of my background, market background, and I've called in somebody because of their market background. So, we're happy to do that, come together to serve a client that way. Works very well as well. So that's kind of the whole big background of how I got into this whole thing and what I'm doing today. But I'm having a lot more fun. Let me just close with this, helping small and mid-sized businesses, because I truly believe they are, and well, they are the base of our economy.
Yep.
And when you can take a company and really show them how to, again, reach record-breaking sales and get that sales engine, more consistent, so that they can run their business and do the good that they're going to do by doing so. It's a lot of fun. So thank you.
Yeah. Lot of difference between working with the billion plus and the more entrepreneurial type. One of the things you talked about, which I really appreciate you bringing up, is the difference between being a great individual contributor and
Mm-hmm.
being a sales leader. Um, when when I started my career, nobody was talking about sales enablement or sales operations or sales support or customer success or biz dev or any of those kinds of things. All of that was just dumped on the individual, and they were expected to somehow perform masterfully in all of those areas.
Right.
Could you just talk about, how do you help? I mean, those functions, sales enablement, operations, support, exist in every size business.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help organizations think differently than just throwing people out in the street with a cut sheet?
Yep, exactly. Well, it all starts with, for us, an assessment, and then from that assessment, determining what, knowing what we know about the different areas of sales, infrastructure and strategy and the people and all the elements that come together. Finding out, most companies that get to a level that I deal with, $5 million plus, are doing something right. So, let's leave that alone. Let's look at that, but then let's look at the areas that they haven't addressed yet. So it all kinds of starts with an assessment, just like a doctor wouldn't wouldn't do surgery without triage and testing and everything else. So we start there, we take a look at that. And then, to your point, I start with sales strategy. Let's talk about what we want to do first. Let's make
Yep.
sure we have a game plan. One of the first things that I talk with, in fact, I'm starting with a new client next week, actually, and I'll be meeting with the sales team, and I kind of give the same speech every time, but I just want them to understand my philosophy is that I consider selling a team sport. Okay. It's absolutely a team sport. It is not, even though we talk about individual contributors and individual salespeople, and you make a very valid point. Back in the day, it was like, hey, I hired this guy or this lady, let them go do what they do and turn on the magic and bring it home. Sales is much more complex than it was back then, in my opinion. The technology is being used on both sides, the amount of information that needs to be known on both sides. You can't do it alone. When a team comes together, they just get better. Weekly
Yep.
sales meetings. I've never had a sales meeting. A lot of people, sales meetings. What the heck do you have those for? It just lets them blow their own horns and do. I said, I've never been in a sales meeting where somebody didn't get helped to advance the client, to find a solution for something or introduce somebody to somebody so that, it could happen quicker and make it all happen. And I think it's critical. And, I always say, there's no position on a football team for a fumble picker upper. Okay. That doesn't exist, right? So when there is a fumble, I want the closest man or woman to jump on the ball like they do in the NFL or college football. Okay. We have to help each other here. And that's when when that team attitude comes together. And I think that's what I've heard a lot of good compliments from the business owners that I've worked with through the years. They say, man, you built a team here. You really built a team. And I appreciate that. The last leader or whatever they had just couldn't do that. And these people are excited of helping one another, getting out there and doing it and helping the client. So
Yeah, interesting. I love to hear that because I believe in, both from the revenue science standpoint and personally, it's so much more fun to be on a team that works together because none of us know it all.
mm,
And yet our clients may need it all. And if we've got a team, we can make that happen.
absolutely right. Hmm.
So one of the other things that has become, I guess, the internet, opened all of our eyes to, what's possible and choices and options and so on and so forth. And we start to see purpose making a difference. The purpose that the company's there for, the purpose that the products or services we sell have to transfer value to the ideal buyer. Is that something you see in the kinds of clients you work with that, when
Hmm.
people get up in the morning and are fulfilled by their work, that it makes a difference?
Absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, we've seen the stats about, how many people are disengaged with their work today and how they are looking for a company that stands for something, It's interesting. I obviously do a lot of hiring for my clients. I mean, we hire, it's a SX, I think we hire 400 or 500 sales positions a year for our clients. And the old, postings of job descriptions just don't do it anymore. Most people want that, and I focus the first paragraph on the company culture. Who is this company? What do they stand for? What's it going to be like to come work for us? Because that's what, we talk about millennials and the
Yep.
other, generational folks that are going to make up a company, but more so them than anyone else. I want to feel a part of something. I need to be a part of something. I need to
Yep.
feel like I'm doing something good. And it's funny, we said it in a different way back in my day. People used to just say, well, you better believe in the product because you're not going to be good at selling if you don't believe in the product. Now we know that solutions are much more than a product today, right? They are the company, they are their total value proposition, right? What is this value that you talked about that passes on to the client? Whether it's the type of product that's good for the environment, or sometimes we just have, simple products that we need, but the company is standing for something bigger in the way that they do it, whether they're involved in their local communities, or they're making contributions back to the environment, or whatever it happens to be. But that's become a much bigger issue in hiring people. And what I've seen is, the proper way to find the right people for the team is to lead with that. Just let everybody know what it's going to be like to work here. And this is what we stand for. Have a mission, have a goal. And if they don't, I will sit down with them and make sure they document it, because it's necessary today.
Amen. You said one of my other favorite words. Um, I've gotten so when I speak a fair amount, and I ask CEO, and normally to CEOs, and I ask them the question, how many times this week did you take a few minutes and just focus on how you're going to transfer more value to your ideal buyer that they will pay you for?
Hmm.
I have yet to have a CEO raise their hand and say they do it at all.
Hmm. Interesting.
And when you were just talking about the importance of the value we transfer,
Hmm.
we get so engaged in the tactical running around, doing things to look busy. Uh, do you find there's a way you can help focus your sales teams on the value they're actually transferring to the buyers? Because that makes the buyers much more willing to pay.
Right. Absolutely. Well, again, I think it starts, and it's interesting you say this, because it brings me back to a company that one that I talked about that is approaching $1 billion today. We used to go away every year and talk about, what we did right this year in our own mind, what we did wrong, what we should do, how do we protect ourselves, how do we do this? And we sat around, after I want to say it was after the 2008 time frame, when the
Yeah,
economy
yeah.
went in the gutter again, and construction was way down, and we were talking about how we can help these people. And we started saying, okay, well, what is the value we really bring to these clients? Okay, now we happen to be in the electric sign business. We did signage and branding and things like that, and we were dabbling on the ends of bringing construction in, remodel, refresh construction. We had already started some maintenance work, kind of help them in downtimes to maintain their products and things like that. And what we really said is, what we bring them is we're actually program management experts that happen to be in the sign business. Okay, what we do really well is manage their programs. We work well with the client. We understand their business. We've learned it through the years. We know their processes, and we know all the issues that have to be addressed to make sure that they're getting great value from us, right? And so then what we did is we sat around and said, okay, if we're really good at that, what else do our clients purchase and buy that we don't supply today, but we could, utilizing that value proposition? And that's how we started the construction division and a couple of other divisions. That I think the construction division is now the largest division of that company. And it was simply by going back to the clients and say, you know, you tell us that you're happy. Are we all still on the same page? Oh, you provide great value. You know exactly what you're doing. Okay. Well, we would like to go into this business because, we know your business. We know how to bring value to it. We know how to keep everybody informed. And they're quick to jump up and say, absolutely, would love you in that business. Here's a trial order to get you started, and let's feel each other's out. So, if you're constantly bringing that value, if you're looking to satisfy the problems and issues of the buyer, whatever role that they happen to be in, you know, they'll come at you with more things, and you should be thinking about other things to bring value to them. Because who doesn't want a good supplier? You're going to give them as much as you can.
Yeah, oh, I love that. Too often, and I think this some of the salespeople are more aware of this than the senior leadership sometimes.
Hmm.
That you were on three or four subjects that really all need to come together, and one, of course, is is the value we're transferring, but the other was the intimacy with your customer and
Hmm.
understanding who they are and what's really important to them. And one of the language pieces I always ask CEOs is, are you in business to make money from your client or with your client?
I love it.
And when you ask that question, it forces are you in this short term or are you in this long term? And as
Hmm.
I was listening to you, all I could see was this, we're in this together for the long period.
Hmm.
And if we're as good at this, which we think we are, and you think we are, what else can we do? And we have some ideas for you that going forward, we could really increase the value we transfer through our partnership.
Right.
And, I think a lot of salespeople feel that, but I'm not sure all organizations are conscious of that opportunity.
Agreed. Agreed. I think a little too much emphasis gets placed on, the immediate revenue production that we all need because we need cash flow, we need to run our business and everything else. And and then a lot of that, we've always done it this way, attitude creeps in, right? This is
Yeah.
what we offer. Just go sell more of it, find more people, do this, and not enough work gets done at the strategy level. Let's sit back, let's think this through.
Yeah.
What's the long-term game plan? Okay. Yes, we know we've got to bring in sales. We have to feed the engine that we've created to service our clients. But we always have to be looking at how to grow. I mean, we know the old adage in business: you're either moving forward or you're dying. You don't. There's no standstill position in business, right? So
Yeah.
knowing that you always have to move forward, you've got to have a game plan for doing that, and that's the smart time. Even though we went away as an executive group, like I said, once a year to do it, I do that with my sales teams. We sit down and say what's working, what's not working, what are clients saying, I send them out on missions to query them beyond what we're currently supplying them with. What else could we do for you? Who's one question I'm amazed how many people answer it honestly and effectively, right? Who's your worst supplier today? Of anything that like who's your worst supplier? Oh, they have an attitude about that. Oh, this, I can't find a decent supplier for this. They'll tell you that right away, type of thing. Now, it might not be something you can do, but it's always interesting to see where their pain points are and things like that. So I think you just have to make it a mission, make it part of your culture that several times a year you're going to spend time, you're going to put it on the calendar,
Yep.
and we're going to talk strategy for a half a day or a day. We're not going to talk about implementing, the existing work that we're doing, but are we doing the right work? Where else should we be going?
Yeah, two things jump out of that for me. One is um, when you really focus on that strategic partnership relationship with the client, maybe you could tomorrow go out and kind of run down somebody new, but selling new business is much more expensive and much more time consuming than helping the business you have grow with you strategically. And I think we forget that sometimes, and we
Mhm.
just want to send somebody out. Did you make 10 new calls today? And
Right.
you're really on the side that I like is how can I be with this client for the next 20 years and both of us continually intentionally grow?
Correct.
And the other thing, I'm smiling because the podcast that's going to go on before yours on the calendar, I did last week with a young gentleman who's got a phenomenal AI based company, and
Hmm.
he was talking about creating an AI platform that um, helps you be aware of the data around your operational excellence, your price to value excellence, and
Hmm.
and the end of the conversation, I came to the conclusion. What you're telling me is, I can know so much about what's going on real time. I can see where some parts of my business are going up and some parts are going down, and some clients are getting better and some clients are getting worse, and my margins are better here and they're getting worse over there. And I can do that real time. And he said, yeah, you can absolutely do that stuff real time today. And then my next question was, well, that sounds like I have to be redoing strategy about every 30 days based on those kinds of changes. So, what you're talking about, where you get the sales team involved, they're probably identifying and interpreting some of those changes in the market or in the field or in customer types long before the rest of the organization figures it out.
Oh, absolutely. And since I'm anxious to watch that web podcast of yours and webinar, because that's one of the things that we talk a lot about with our clients is, where's AI going to be in today's marketplace, right? Where should it be? Obviously, there's lots of discussions on that. There's lots of avenues it can go, but we have to be first realize that clients are using it. Okay,
Yep.
so what does that do? It kind of shortens the sales cycle because a client may feel that they can just go on to ChatGPT and say, give me the three best suppliers of this thing that I buy and give it a little bit of data and everything else. And now it's going to go out and bring back the three perfect solutions. We know that's not the case, but we know that, hey, some people are going to depend on that to get this thing started. And you have to understand that. So you have to adapt your digital strategy against the searches that are being done around you. And then knowing that you're not being brought in until much later in the sales game, you have to be able to react a lot quicker. All right. And then the potential to do more business, we all know is a bit of a math formula. In other words, ultimately we'll find out that so much business can be done via so many proposals, via so many meetings, via so many, I guess we
Yep.
call them touch points today. It's not just calls or emails or whatever. But AI is around to help us increase the volume of our output as salespeople. And we're always looking for salespeople that are more technically adept today and understand and
Yeah.
can utilize AI, even the simple language versions of it to monitor email flows, look for issues in customer tone and things like that in their emails, being able to generate more emails more quickly, get around to more people more quickly. The tools are there. So,
Yeah.
there's lots that's a topic in and of itself, like but we're definitely that's going to be a requisite of sales for the future is your technical, prowess, if you will, and a lot of it around AI.
Yeah, you just raised an area that I'm trying to learn more about right now, and that is, with your background as being both sales and marketing VP, uh,
Hmm.
it looks to me like the relationship between sales and marketing, based on all those variables you just went through, are starting to change, and
Hmm.
that marketing, if it's done right, it's touching those touch points you just mentioned. Marketing's providing a lot of those touch points and hopefully triaging the opportunity before it comes to sales.
Right.
Where where in the old days, we would have to go network or start at the top of the building and work our way down or whatever it is. And it looks to me like that change is accelerating. And I I'm particularly in B2B, I'm looks to me like marketing's struggling in that space.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
they're
well,
good.
the pure trial and error marketing, I think, is what's struggling. Well, let's send out a couple of different
Yeah,
emails, see which one, has some merit and some things like that. But they're starting to use AI to get more information around that. So, I think it's just a transition state. But, one of the things that I always have to emphasize is the coordination of the marketing and the sales effort. If they become silos, that's a lot of wasted money and a lot of wasted time. Sales needs to know what marketing is doing. Marketing needs to know what sales doing, and marketing needs to know they can depend on sales when they bring in leads or they have things, customer engagements. and money gets spent on that, that we can grab it in the Salesforce and move it forward. So I'm a big proponent of bringing as quickly as possible sales and marketing to bear together and making sure that there's, common meetings and discussions of
Yeah.
what's going to take place out there. And then back to the AI side, what's happening too is as we go out, let's say for lead generation, hey, anybody, there's a million programs out there that'll generate a list for you of potential clients, right? Give me 1,000 clients in this geography that have this title that work for these kind of companies and whatever, and you're going to get a list of 1,000 people. Where do you start? That becomes the big thing. Where do you start? Well, some of this AI technology, and we've been working with a company that's doing a really good job of this. I'll give them a shameless plug. They're called Knowledge Net AI. But what they'll do is they'll help you generate this list of 1,000, and then they're going to help you prioritize them. Okay, and they prioritize them based on their ability to utilize bots on your systems, on your email systems and LinkedIn systems and hard drives and everything else. And they look for commonalities and relationships because we all know that sales happens quicker
Yeah.
when trust is built quicker. Okay. So if you can start with referrals instead of cold
Yeah.
calls, if you
Yeah.
can start with it, you get the concept here. But I think that's another area where technology is going to help us at least take some of the trial and error out of the marketing effort, and give us a higher probability of quicker success by utilizing these AI tools to find people that we are more likely to do business with
Yeah.
quicker, type of thing.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear you say that because part of the work we've done forever is recognizing the difference between, for example, people who want to buy early in the life cycle of a product or a service and they're willing to take some risk because they see huge potential returns. And then there are other people who are laggards. And when you go on somebody's website, pre-AI, uh, you go on somebody's website or you go onto their LinkedIn or you go read their blogs or watch them on a webinar or podcast, language alone is a good indicator of how well you may match. If somebody's only talking about price and availability and logistical support, that's a very different buyer than somebody who uses, well, partner and, long term and problems that we want solved. And it makes an AI is everything I can see is just accelerating your ability to recognize those fundamental differences between how people want to do business uh,
Hmm.
and focus there.
Right. Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Because I think one of the last, I read all the surveys and Gartner and everybody else that puts them out in the top 10 things that salespeople are doing, but the number one on their list continues to be that they collaborate with the client, that ultimately the client sees them as a collaborative partner. That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. And, it's not just I'm selling and you're buying. It's like, here's our issues, here's what we need to solve, here's your solutions. Now let's sit down and collaborate and figure out the best way to bring these things together so we both can benefit. To the earlier comments about working with clients towards a multi-decade relationship,
Yep.
if you. Mhm.
Yeah, and the other thing you said that I hope everybody is living toward, and that is once somebody has a real partner as a provider, they don't want to throw that away and hope they can find another one
Mhm.
because it's seldom you really find somebody who's partnering with you. And when you
Yep.
find them, they become an extension of your organization. And that's a goal that all of us who have anything to, when we think of transferring value, that's a huge part of it, that people look at you as part of their team.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about that the other day because we talk a lot about the salespeople going out there. Obviously, they're starting the relationships, they're working with the client, but then a team from inside is going to end up working with that client as well, right? Whether you call them customer service, program management,
Yep.
account management, different businesses have different titles, but those people are very critical to the whole relationship with the client and helping them stay satisfied and grow. And I'll tell you, all the studies that I did through my corporate career, the number one reason we would lose a client was when we had to pull an account manager or a customer service manager, or they left or something, and we just handled it poorly. We just handled it
Yep.
absolutely. Well, don't tell them, just tell them they're getting a new person. And it's like, then the client comes back and go, I'm getting sick of training your people how to do business with me. Okay. So it's something that we have to keep in mind too, and management has to keep in mind. A salesman can't be the be all and end all. You got a service element, and that's another
Yep.
relationship that's got to be. There's got to be a great handoff. There's got to be a good working relationship between the internal support systems of the company as
Yep.
well as sales, and silos can't get built there either, because that's the value that customers are getting. A team that works together, talks together. Hey, people are going to leave, people are going to change. But if you're upfront, you're honest about it, and you
Yep.
always have that backup plan in mind. Okay. Hey, Sally decided she needed to leave for a better opportunity. We wish her all the best, but Bob's been backing her up. We're going to put Bob in there. We're going to make sure we have a manager on top for a period of time or whatever it may be. I mean, that's what people are paying for, and you got to continue to provide
Succession planning works in sales and
it.
customer support as much as it does in an organization.
You got it. You got it. So
One of the things we've learned when we work, particularly B2B enterprise, is what we call a joint statement of work. You don't create a proposal for a client until you've had somebody on the client side who represents kind of the money part and somebody on the client side who represents operations working with similar people on the seller side,
hmm
because the technical person or the engineering person likes to talk to another engineer, and they like to create that relationship, and sometimes they'll have some hard conversations, but when they're done they typically want to go have a beer.
right.
uh, and on the business side, if the business people don't understand why the technical solution makes business sense,
hmm
they're going to be reluctant to go forward. So, that succession planning from the moment of proposal development, it
hmm
actually shortens sales cycles, increases margins, and increases probability of success. So
hmm
it's a little investment in the beginning, but it makes a huge, huge difference.
I couldn't agree with you more. It was just, some of the things that we saw that helped that I had, helped develop in the past was, you know, just pre-proposal. If we were feeling really good about this client based on probability, we would automatically assign an account manager and maybe some technical person to work with the salesperson to help develop the final
Yep.
proposal. All right. And then, you'll never see a team work better that when you give them all input at the front end, right, into
Yep.
the strategy and into the proposal. And, oh, that's not going to work. And maybe we should do it this way. And, we got to make sure that we can maintain, our service levels, and we'll need to do this, that, and the other thing. And then customers see that and they absolutely
Yep.
appreciate. But when a team of three shows up to make a presentation, that's a commitment on the part of a customer. So again, it depends on what you sell. You can't do that with
Yeah.
a 15-cent item that you're
Right.
selling volume of, but in the B2B true solution selling, that's invaluable.
Yeah. So as you look out to the future for your client population, that 5 to 50 or 100 million, uh, what should they be thinking about for the next, 4 or 5 years? How should they be positioning or, restructuring or rethinking?
hmm Yeah. Well, number one, we've got to talk about, what this technology is doing. Okay. Get a technology strategy, I think, is important for an organization. I think there's some really good companies out there that are now being formed. Instead of just trying to sell you more technology, they're coming in to work on the strategy of that technology
Yeah.
with you. Okay. What do we want to accomplish in the future? What are we going to need? What are our information needs? What are we going to have to provide to clients? I mean, some of our businesses, a big part of our value proposition is to give the client the opportunity to jump on a portal and find things out for themselves. That's so, let's make sure I think that's something you got to be looking at. You should have a technology strategy partner working with you, and you need to be thinking about that. And that transcends into every area of your business. Everybody's touching technology today. So they've got to be looking at that. From the sales side, again, we're going to look at the people that have a little bit more of a technical bent when we bring them in. But you also want to be looking at, you know, who are your ideal clients? How are you serving them today? And where might you want to go in the future to grow your business? You got to sit down and think about that at least on an annual basis, and really put some stakes in the ground. And you can't just do a hope and a prayer. I come into these organizations and it's, well, what's the sales force doing? Well, we've been doing 10 million for the past 3 years. Okay, great. What do you want to do next year? More than 10 million. Okay. A dollar more, a million more. What do you have the capacity to do? Some people just they don't even think, and it's like, and then the other thing that I'm a stickler about, I'm like, look, when we agree on a sales quota and a target for the organization, it's got to be the sum of all the individual parts. There can't be this fluffy fat wallet thing or whatever. Everybody needs to own a number and know that if they make their number and everybody else makes their number, we as an organization made our number. This kind of stuff. Well, I don't really give quotas. Sometimes they have good years, sometimes they have bad years. How do you get over the goal line if you don't know where it is? I mean, I got to tell you, I've motivated more mediocre salespeople simply by sitting down with them, looking at what they've done in sales and what the activity level has to be, and then assigning a quote to them saying, okay, based on what you've done, you did a 500,000 last year, whatever. I'm convinced we can do 750. And to do 750, you need to make this many calls, have this many meetings, to do. And now they have they have a goal and they get up there hey, guess what? I made my 50 calls today. And you know what? I got 3 appointments out of it. And this is getting exciting. And I'm talking to more people and more things are happening.
Yep.
And, again, we know the intricacies of what it takes, but it's somewhat simplistic in a sense. So,
Yeah, interesting. Um, One of the things that it really comes out of many of your comments. A lot of the research you mentioned Gartner and McKinsey have been really clear that the buyers aren't in a hurry to talk to us because so much of what we used to talk to them about they can find online, and we're just wasting their time if we're telling the same thing. And
yeah,
so they're really expecting us to come in and talk about things they don't already know.
correct.
And when you talk about long term like that, long term is one of those. It's, yes, you understand the technology I'm here to talk to you about today, but do you realize over the next 3 years, when you do these things and this thing and that thing, what the difference will be 5 years from now? And
Hmm.
help people get an idea of their long term plan based on what you're there to talk to them about today. So,
Right. And they also want to hear testimonials in a sense of what you've done for others. That's we all feel the same way. I mean, think about the way we shop for our simple, day-to-day goods. If I wanted to buy a pair of shoes, I'd go on a website, right?
yep,
Okay, I know that company. I've got a pretty consistent foot, so I'm lucky that way. Most of what I buy online fits. And then, but what am I going to do after I find styles that I like? Now I start looking for the thumbs up. Who
yep,
else had a good experience with this company? And it's the same thing. We've got to, and that's marketing's job as well as
yep.
sales job is making sure that we have the testimonials, the sales stories about the good we've done for other clients. because that's going to be a lot of influence on a potential client saying, okay, these guys have been there, they've done it before, they've done it for reputable companies. That's the kind of partner I want. So,
Yep, exactly, exactly. And that's another good example of marketing going forward. What they do to help us build leads, often that same content is valuable later in the process when one person on the buying team refers another person on the buying team to that content, and you're halfway through the sales cycle, but half the buying team hasn't seen any of that stuff yet.
right, right. Yep. Hmm.
So things that both generate leads also help move deals forward. And
Hmm.
you that's part of that teamwork you were talking about.
Right, and you bring up a big point, and I remember I did a lot of business in my past life with 3M company, 3M Corporation, and I was lucky enough to participate in a lot of their sales training. They invited me into their sales training programs, and I contributed some in some cases. But one of the things they had way back when, I'm talking 25 plus years ago, was, 5 ways deep. And it's like, what is that? Their concept was, look, one person may actually, call you, place the order with you, and give you a purchase order, but you got to understand that there's 4, 5, 10 people behind them that are influencing this sale. And you've got to find a way to at least make them aware of who you are and what you do. And that's what good marketing tries to do. They try, the CFO may never be in a meeting for what you're selling somebody, but you can be assured they know that you're a vendor and that
Yep.
you're doing this much money. And if there's a methodology for reaching out to them, once a month with a newsletter or something so that your name stays top of mind, they feel good about the decision the company made. You've got to look at getting multi ways deep in an organization. And 3M went so far with this back in those days. It was the requirement of the salesperson to deliver the first invoice to the accounts payable department. Now that
Uh,
did two things. Number one, it got them paid quicker. Okay.
yep.
They didn't have as big a bad a debt problem. But the salesperson now met somebody in the finance/accounting department that they now knew. Okay. And they wanted to make sure that all the numbers were right and we did it all right. And so now you have another way deep in that organization. And, God forbid your person leaves or whatever, you could make a phone call to them and said, "Hey, I heard Sally left. Any scuttlebutt on who's going to replace her or who I should be
Yep.
touching base with?" Or so, the relationships have to go many ways deep in an organization when you truly get, good selling and good, relationships built. So,
I love that because and the research is just saying that number is getting bigger all the time because you've got compliance and data security and you got diversity. All these people are looking over all these deals
right.
and they don't understand. They're not even supposed to understand the deal. They're
Right.
just supposed to make sure it's compliant or it's, whatever. And the interesting thing about that is there's all those silos, all of them get their veto power or their checkbox power, and yet they don't speak the same languages. You
Mm-hmm.
know, finance speaks finance, and marketing speaks marketing, and engineering speaks engineering. The
Mm-hmm.
only common word all those people have is price.
Right.
So you better do those things you were talking about, get them that newsletter or, help give them some common ground for understanding the value. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't, just recognize the only common word they start with is price.
Right. That's a good point. It's an excellent point. Mm-hmm.
So, what what advice do you have for new people coming in the industry? And with your background, you have already been speaking today wider than just the salespeople, but focus on the selling part of the organization. What kind of advice do you have for new people coming in? And then I'm going to ask the same question for how do you create great leadership around those for those people?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, the advice for the incoming person is, we talked about it earlier. Make sure you're comfortable with the strategy of the company and what they stand for. What is their value proposition? What do they stand for in the community and in the businesses that they serve? And make sure that you're very comfortable with that big piece on the front end. And then obviously meet as many people as you can and make sure that that's resonating through everyone that you speak to. Okay, because you're going to invest time, whether you're plan to be there for 2 years or 20 years, and we never know what anybody's head plan is. It's a big move when you move from company to company. So make sure, and you're only going to do better if you agree with their philosophies and you're comfortable with the direction that they're taking. So that's kind of the incoming. For the team that's there, okay, again, make sure, I'm going to just reiterate it, that that company culture and that company direction and strategy is extremely visible to your employees and to any person that you may be entertaining to come in. Take the time to document it, let people know what's important to you, what your value is, and then also, when we're talking salespeople, let them know who your ideal clients are, who you're looking to engage, what type of people they are, and make sure that again there's a personality fit. And again, depending on the role that you're hiring for, we really haven't mentioned it in any of these discussions so far, but I'm a big believer in assessment testing and personality profiling.
Yep.
Because again, just like we said, taking your best salesperson and trying to make a sales manager out of them overnight is a horrible thing because personality wise, they don't fit. You got an
Right.
individual contributor that wants to go out and take the glory for what they do against a person that wants to do it through a team and
Yep.
like a coach on a football team would want to do. So utilize that testing, I think, because I've been doing this, as I said, for 35 plus years, and I got a pretty good gut when I talk to salespeople for positions and things like that. But I've been fooled like everybody else.
Yep.
So, and my old adage about the testing is, I would never use it to find your perfect star, but if it prevents you from hiring poor people, it's done its job. So,
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well, John, this has been just excellent. Um, and just anything you'd like to leave us with today.
um, again, don't see, for business owners, I guess is who I'm speaking to here. Don't negate the value of the sales function. Okay. Make sure that they're part of the full strategy of the organization and make sure, back to our original thing, that the mindset of the company for successful companies has to be on satisfying the client and
Yeah.
collaborating with the client. Make sure you don't take that for granted and you're not just pumping out widgets and trying to sell them. You're providing there's a value transfer. What you said earlier just completely resonates. Make sure everyone understands what their value transfer should be
Yep.
and then use measuring tools to make sure it's happening. Okay, and your clients are satisfied. If you do that, you'll have a client for life. I mean, if you collaborate and you constantly bring value, who would want to switch? I I sit here and I look at things that I do, that I buy for myself in my house. The guy that's done my sprinkler system,
Yep.
guy's great, calls me every time, turns them on, turns them off, makes sure they're all working. He provides great value to me, and I wouldn't think of switching on him, type of thing. But then I've got other guys in landscaping. They don't call me. They don't ask. They're doing things for the neighbors. They're not doing for me. I'm like, where's my value here? And I may find a new one. So anyway,
Yep.
my parting comments.
I couldn't agree more. You get a lot farther when you make money with your client than from your client.
I'm gonna steal that line from you. I love it.
Well, John, thank you. And for all of those you watching, John's information's there on the screen. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you. And if you have the need for somebody who can help you get to new record-breaking sales numbers, he'd like to be on that team.
Great.
So I thank all of you for joining us. We'll have another new one in 2 weeks. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.